Well, Dr. Ang, you were saying that the economic fundamentals are strong, but of course we have many legacy issues that we need to deal with, structural issues that you mentioned. Of course, the Philippines is globally connected, and a lot of people are saying that many of the problems that we're facing domestically are to be blamed on external factors. I'm sure you've heard some of those. What are some of these external headwinds that worry you the most, and worry you in a way that it will might have a lot of impact on the Philippines?
Well, actually, I look at three things that are very important.
Okay.
That will actually both these three can either be a bane or a boon to us, right? So, for example, we have been waiting for the WHO to make that final, announcement telling us that COVID is endemic, because when they do that, they release a lot of resources.
Okay.
Of course, countries are doing that on their own now. For example, Japan, US, Singapore is just going to do it next week. No, so if other countries are going to do the same, then if there's a global announcement, then resources can be released for other purposes. Because right now, you are in an emergency phase, so you have to keep certain resources for that, right?
So just in case there's a new variant.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you have make that announcement, then it frees resources.
Okay.
So that's one.
Does it affect the moods of people in terms of investing instead of going after opportunities, do you think? Because that is sort of like a sort of Damocles hanging on everyone's head, that it could come back, rather quickly?
No, I don't think so, because I think more or less it's like fait accompli. I mean,
people accepted
it already like this. But then, what's putting the icing there and finally releasing those resources?
I see. What was your second point?
The second one is China reopening.
Okay.
It's good, very good tourism.
Okay.
Very, very good in production. Very good for supply chains. All of this global inflation was because China closed, basically.
Right.
So, it takes 3 weeks for the turnaround of goods and services from China during the pandemic, because they want 21 days of quarantine. So that really takes you out of the process. So we know, and we have seen data, shipping costs have gone back to pre-COVID levels. So we're okay there. But then China reopening also means that China will consume a significant amount of energy to reopen their factories and to move their people around. That means energy prices. Again, is we have not seen it. We just know that there could be that possibility of them again pushing up prices of energy, particularly oil.
Okay.
Lastly, of course, the major global, game changer is the Russia-Ukraine.
The Ukraine war.
War, right? Because that's really taking us. It's going to be a year in a few weeks. We don't know if 1 year would mean a major offensive or a major path towards ceasefire. It can go either way.
Right.
So if we go the path of ceasefire, really, really good, because that means you now will have the opportunity to go back planting, because Russia and Ukraine combined produces a huge amount of wheat.
Okay.
And Russia produces urea, which is used for fertilizer.
Right.
And because of the economic sanctions, Russia could not sell the urea. So this is also one reason why food prices are very high until recently, when there was a shift somewhere and new producers came out. But then you cannot take them out of the equation.
Sure.
You cannot really just say we're okay with let them fight.
Right.
It's not. It's very important we also achieve some sort of a ceasefire in this area. That would help the recovery much faster of the global the world, no?
Right.
And restart supply chains, restart production.
Right.
Because in some places they're still affected. Of course, the disaster like the one happened in Turkey and Syria, they're a game changer in the sense that, you know, shifting resources again. I mean,
Sure.
So the world has to shift resources.
Yeah. At the end of 2022, the outlook for 2023 was quite bleak. There's been some adjustments made in January that were an improvement on the outlook, but not very much. But they're still saying that the global growth this year will be very modest. Does that worry you, or will the Philippines really be bucking the trend in that regard?
Yeah, we will buck the trend, but then we will grow faster than the world average. But the thing is, the global growth prospects are also dependent on these things that I have shared with you. And then the impact on the Philippines is it's our value chain towards this. So for example, urea is important because value chain for our fertilizer in our food production. Now, even if we are not directly affected, prices will become higher.
Oh, we are, because I think there's a shortage of it now, or a looming shortage.
Yes, so
of fertilizer.
Prices will be expensive of food items which we import. So we basically are importing two things there. So that's where we are going to be affected. And then oil prices, we know, it's seesaw. So right now we are experiencing 2 successive declines already, weekly. But then
with China opening up, as you said,
China opened up. They had the Lunar New Year, but we did not see a significant uptick. So it's possible that China is still not in the full not
still
full
warming
blast.
up.
Not full blast.
Does it worry you that China was, as they say, turning toward developing its domestic market rather than being a factory of the world? There's also this development in China where its people are becoming older. I was reading or I saw something from the Wall Street Journal, for instance. They're investing in robotics now because labor in China is not cheap anymore. There are some, structural changes happening there. Is that going to impact us, maybe in terms of higher products that come from that country, or are there other suppliers that we can look at?
Well, basically, the world has shifted during the pandemic. So many of the production now has gone to our neighbors, Vietnam and Indonesia, and to a certain extent Malaysia. We have lost in that, that because we don't have the productive capacities. We have the service capacities, but so that's why there's
not the manufacturing.
Not the manufacturing. That's why we did not get that. So in China, I was hoping we can get some of the business that China is giving up. The full business, not just components of it.
The previous administration of President Duterte was banking on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP, as a way of maybe getting some investors to come to the Philippines and then service, of course, this new trade area, which will be the largest in the world, to include the Philippines, China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea. Do you buy into that argument, or is that one way to get investors here, to be able to serve these markets, or are there other things that we should be looking at?
Well, actually, the RCEP is very good for the country, in the sense that it allows you to go into a network.
It opens up markets.
Yes, and a network that's you don't have to go through a lot of process by being a signatory, but at the same time it also pushes you further in your productive capacity. So it may be that it will furthermore weaken the remaining productive sectors here, those that produces manufactured goods, for example. But then that's necessary for competition. So without that, we have been, I should say that we have been protected for a long time. So by competing directly, and by being part of a value chain that is going to be trading with the world, you're not trading on your own, trading with the world. No? Much like what we were supposed to reap from the ASEAN free trade AFTA.
Right.
Right. So the reason why we're not benefiting much as we were supposed to is because we are very limited in our competitive capacity. So we are just staying there. So that's why services is coming in. That's why BPOs are here.
Right.
OFWs are going out. These are people's
but not
capacity.
not the manufacturing jobs.
Not the manufacturing, which to me has higher value added.
Right.
And allows you to like increase your productivity much faster. Like what's tremendously happening in Vietnam right now.
Wow. We'll be right back with Dr. Alvin Ang of the Ateneo at the Manila Economic School Department.